This week, he didn't win, he didn't win, and she didn't really win either. Hello and welcome to the 24/7 UK General Election Special for 2017. Well, it's been quite a week, hasn't it? As it often has been recently. Not many people predicted that outcome. We're going to take a sideways look, as always, at what's been going on, in particular election night itself. As always, it was being covered by the BBC and ITV, and the first order of business was, of course, to look at the exit poll.
And what we're saying is the Conservatives are the largest party. Note, they don't have an overall majority at this stage. 314 for the Conservatives. That's down 17. 266 for Labour. That's up 34.
ITV had George Osborne and Ed Balls on the panel in a rather heavy-hitting duo, which is a pretty good signing. And their relationship was getting underway pretty early on.
The whole question of what Brexit looks like in this scenario gets thrown up. But look, I don't want, now I'm a newspaper journalist.
Amongst other things.
And I look at these results as a journalist, but as a politician, I'm just thinking, let's wait and see. We've got a lot of real votes to be counted.
ITV had one reporter with each of the three big party leaders, if the Lib Dems can still be called a big party. First up was Emily Morgan with Theresa May.
Well, I don't think you'll be surprised to hear that I have heard nothing from Team Theresa.
Hashtag Team Theresa.
If this poll comes to pass, it would be an humiliation for Theresa May. She is at home behind me with Philip.
Blimey, Downing Street's changed.
She voted earlier today.
I wonder who she voted for.
The suggestions I'm getting, more than suggestions, they are absolutely clear. There will be no coalition deal. Now, they said that, didn't they, throughout this parliament? And the numbers may well not add up to that anyway. It is early days. But that is what they're sticking to at the moment, and an enormous sense of excitement going on throughout the Labour team.
Yeah, it looks like there's enormous excitement on that road as well. It looks like there's a robbery going on or something.
So where does that leave him now? He's not at home at the moment. We believe he's heading back any minute.
Tim Farron had been helping out a local member of the community earlier in the day.
We were told that he was out in his constituency, actually knocking on doors, urging people to get out there and vote. And actually at 9:45, found one old lady who couldn't walk to the polling station, so popped her in his own car and drove her there.
Wow, what a story. Imagine if she still didn't vote Lib Dem.
Certainly seen here in Sheffield a real kind of uptick, possibly even a surge in the Labour vote.
Oh, good prediction for you, Nick, unfortunately, I'm afraid.
And whether that can be extrapolated to other parts of the country, I don't know.
So, early indications seem to suggest that the Tories weren't heading for the landslide they were expecting. However, the night was yet to play out, and most people were sceptical, to say the least, of that polling. As such, it was on to the actual declarations, and there was a race on to be first, as always.
Chi Onwura, Labour Party, 24,071.
Ooh, Newcastle beating Sunderland there in that northern derby. Sunderland won't be pleased. However, they were declaring just a few minutes later. However, the sound problems seemed to be annoying David Dimbleby.
They may be able to count in a hurry. They certainly need to take control of their sound system.
It was time for David to interview Labour frontbencher Emily Thornberry.
So let me get this absolutely straight. At 12:10 on this Friday morning, you're saying that Jeremy Corbyn may go to number 10, make his hands with the Queen, or whatever he agrees to do with the Queen.
Good grief, David. Good job it's late.
Thank you very much. Now, we've been joined by Andrew Marr. Well, no, don't speak. I just said we've been joined by Andrew Marr, but Andrew, just before...
Don't speak? What do you think you're here for?
Robert, I don't quite know where to start because I could ask you about 15 questions at once, but let me just at least start with the basic.
ITV had all their regulars on as well, and Bert Preston was, of course, one of their main correspondents, who was slumped brilliantly in his chair from very early on.
Have you been doing the maths? If this was the right number, if Could the Tories form a government, in your view, realistically? They'd be a minority government, obviously, but would they be able to do it, do you think?
So, I mean, I just want to repeat that this, if the exit poll is even remotely in the right territory, is a political earthquake of the sort that neither you or I have lived through.
The first big name loss of the night was about to come in.
Scottish Conservative and Unionist, 22,000.
So the Conservatives take Murray. Angus Robertson, the familiar figure in the House of Commons, asking his 2 questions on behalf of the SNP, is out of the House.
And Angus is bound to have some beef with that result. ITV seemed to gloss over the Angus Robertson result a bit.
I'm just, before we get to you, if I might, I'm just told that Angus Robertson, the SNP leader at Westminster, has lost his seat to the Tories in Scotland, which is quite a startling development. So this is it's not all going against the Tories, is it, here? But let's just go back, if I might, to the campaign itself.
Corbyn actually kicked off his campaign with a photo call in a toilet. I mean, the signs could not be worse for Labour. Yet it is Theresa May who has had a stinker of a campaign.
Yeah, sounds like Corbyn started with a bit of a stinker of a campaign too, according to that information.
Neeraj Patil, Labour Party, 19,125.
Some very exuberant waving there, blimey.
We've also been looking at the emojis.
Yes, this is the news we need. This is the information that we require at this point of the night. Forget the gains and losses. What emoji are people most using online to describe this election night? I am going nowhere until I have found out this information.
These are the top Twitter emojis in tweets about the Conservatives in the aftermath of the polls closing. Crying with laughter, party popper, union flag, as people talk about maybe not having to Brexit from the European Union.
Force speaks for itself.
Yeah, absolute shocker. And then red alert for the Conservative Party.
OK, Rob, thank you.
Over ITV, they were making plenty of use of their big-name pundits, Ed Balls and George Osborne. And in one particularly interesting moment, keep your eyes on Osborne's eyes.
What we're seeing here is the divisions we saw in the referendum last year being reflected now in the general election. You know that Remain much stronger in this.
Looking at the election from an Irish perspective, Tom Bradby was interviewing Gerry Adams. However, the sound wasn't quite synced up right, meaning that Gerry Adams looked quite like his own ventriloquist's dummy.
It's all about Brexit. It's all about here, it's about Brexit, and then across Britain, it's about Brexit as well. And
the Lib Dems picked up their first seat at around 2:45, and it was won in Scotland. And as I've been wondering in the preceding weeks which way the Scottish seats were going to fall, it seemed that we have passed peak SNP. Certainly looking at the numbers since the election, of course, we can analyse that in greater hindsight. The success story of where those SNP losses got distributed arguably was the Tories, not that the rest of the UK seemed to follow suit.
She's looking pretty grim-faced as she arrives. Philip May, who made an appearance on the campaign trail at the last moment yesterday, smiling for the cameras.
Let's be honest, Phil May looks happy whatever the circumstances, so...
Nick Clegg, Liberal Democrats, 19,756. Jared O'Mara, Labour Party, 21,881.
Nick Clegg was, of course, one of the more emotional seat losses of the night.
In my time in Parliament, I've never shirked from political battles. I've never retreated from the political battlefield. I've always sought to stand by the liberal values I believe in.
It was a rather rollercoaster half hour for the Lib Dems as Vince Cable got back in about 5 minutes after Nick Clegg was booted out.
So one goes down, and as one goes down, the other one comes up. Vince Cable, who was defeated at the last election for Twickenham, a Liberal Democrat, Business Secretary in the coalition, has retaken Twickenham.
Jeremy Corbyn was unsurprisingly returned to his seat and was making a big speech just after the vote.
and to continue to...
Whilst making his big speech, Corbyn managed to pull off a trick even more surprising than his election performance.
About listening as about telling other people. And so I do thank the people for their support. I also want to say a huge thank you.
Where did he come from?
Labour Party, and I'm very, very proud of the campaign that my party has run. Our manifesto for the many, not the few.
For the many, not for the few. Look at that. Election bingo up and running.
Knight, Andrew, David, Animal Welfare Party, 282.
Over at Theresa May's count, as has been reported on pretty much every comedy news programme going, there was rather a motley crew of other candidates.
May, Theresa Mary.
Theresa Mary? She's been using a fake name the whole time.
At this time, more than anything else, this country needs a period of stability. And if, as the indications have shown, if this is correct, that the Conservative Party has won the most seats and probably the most votes, then it will be incumbent on us to ensure that we have that period of stability, and that is exactly what we will do.
Bit vague.
The curious use of words, the country needs a period of stability, suggesting that it's not a full parliament she's thinking of.
I think that's true. I think, as we were saying half an hour ago, so ministers privately now say clearly they do not expect to outperform the exit poll.
It was a terrible result for UKIP leader Paul Nuttall, who was standing in the most Brexit seat in the country.
So a pretty humiliating defeat for Paul Nuttall, 3,308 only, in Boston and Skegness, an area with the highest area of vote leave.
Now, of course, the BBC and ITV had reporters all over the country, and in Cardiff it was nice to see Paul Nuttall's Welsh cousin.
Welsh Labour here has played up its Welshness. Jeremy Corbyn hasn't been seen very much, and Carwyn Jones, the First Minister, has been front and centre of the campaign.
And I must say, later in the night, it was wonderful to see Paul Nuttall's southern cousin.
Politicians go and sort it out, don't inflict another general election on us.
The DUP were up to 10 seats by 10 to 4 in the morning, not that we knew the significance of that at the time.
Last time, in 2015, George will remember actually, you were forecasting, I think, 315 seats, not 314, at the beginning of the evening.
Hello, I'm the most stereotypical policeman in the whole of the land.
Now, on a night of unfulfilled promises, we'd found one Tory who was quite cheery, and rightfully so. That was Scottish Conservative leader Ruth Davidson.
I can hear there's a lot of noise behind you, but I hope you can hear me. Is the problem for the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom as a whole that Theresa May doesn't have the lustre that attaches itself to you in Scotland?
Oh, steady on, David.
Well, I know it's getting late at night, David, but I didn't expect such compliments. I think we can leave my lustre somewhere else, if that's all right. I mean, we had a really clear message at this campaign, which was about the big issue that's in Scotland right now, and that was the issue of Nicola Sturgeon trying to ram through a second independence referendum in March.
What do you make of what's happened? I mean, you and many others misjudged Jeremy Corbyn, didn't you?
Well, first of all, the Prime Minister held this election for naked party political reasons.
Naked party reasons? Good grief, I'm glad I missed that part of the campaign.
Well, yes, we're just contemplating that inside our virtual parliament, remembering 2010, when the Conservatives under David Cameron got 306 seats and they needed friends, and they looked to the Liberal Democrats, and then you had the coalition. What might happen this time?
Jeremy Vine just casually reclining on a virtual bench in Parliament there. I love how that's even possible. It's brilliant. For no reason either. It's just because they can. Absolutely amazing.
Alan Patrick Vincent Whitehead, Labour Party, 27,509.
Well, I think that's it. He's increased his majority, so it is a hung parliament.
Well, it's quite a result, this, isn't it? There were one or two hung parliament polls, let's not forget, in the pre-election polling, but they were dismissed as an anomaly, really, with most of the results ranging between sort of 5–10% Tory victories, even towards the latter stages. So we were in for quite a remarkable remainder of the morning.
Technically, the largest party is entitled to put forward a Queen's speech and see what the other parties make of it.
I sat through hours of footage for this programme, but it was all worth it for this great moment from everybody's favourite journalistic character, Bert Preston, as his exasperation with the situation was evident for all to see.
What happens in your view? You've had a bit of time, you know, we've all had a bit of time to assess it. What happens now? I mean, first of all, does she definitely go as leader in your view? Any hint as to the runners and riders to succeed? And whoever wins, how long? You're sighing very heavily, Robert.
Look,
let's give it a go at least.
No, look, as I said, it's perfectly clear to me that there will be pressure on Theresa May to go, particularly from the Boris Johnson camp.
Now, we were treated to some tremendous live television over the course of the night, and this surely has to go down as a highlight.
What do you think the future...
6:34 a.m. You're watching live footage of Jeremy Corbyn's dustbin.
Yes, we've just heard from Laura Kunsberg, our political editor, saying the Prime Minister has no intention of resigning, working to form a government based on being the largest party in seats and votes.
One good aspect of this election is it seems to have kicked turnout up a bit, so that hopefully bodes well for the future, so long as these politicians can keep people engaged.
But we're going to pause now to get the news and weather and join Louise Minchin in our breakfast studio.
Thanks, Hugh. Good morning. The BBC understands that Theresa May has no intention of resigning as Prime Minister after the general election results in a hung Parliament.
Oh, it's the BBC's understanding that she's not resigning now, is it? Is Kunisberg happy with that?
Nigel Farage, former leader of UKIP, is indeed with me here in Westminster.
At 8:20, Andrew Neil began some of his interviews, and although he hadn't been on television for long, he seemed to have something else on his mind.
Nigel Farage, Mrs May called an election to get a mandate for her kind of Brexit. She didn't get it.
ITV handed over to Good Morning Britain, where Susanna Reid and in particular Piers Morgan were hamming up the situation a lot, of course. And we can also give one particular correspondent on Good Morning Britain our 24/7 award for the person that you least expected to see reporting on the general election.
Just listening to that speculation there, will you say...
Yes, that's right, at odds of literally 1,000 to 1, it's Kay Adams off Loose Women.
Mid-morning, and ITV had a very interesting report, not due to the content of it, but due to the location of it.
So Tim Farron is heading to London after a reasonable night for the Liberal Democrats. They did gain 3 more seats, taking them up to 12
passengers,
seats
that coach is the quiet coach.
We saw some of the big beasts.
Audio devices, mobile phones and TV recording equipment should not be used there, thank you.
After a couple of hours of not much happening, Paul Nuttall decided it was time to pep up the news agenda again by resigning.
The one question I've been asked by the media, more than any other during this general election, has been, what is the relevance of UKIP now? Well, I contend, even after the difficult night last night, that UKIP is more relevant than it ever was. This is because UKIP are, more now than ever after last night's result, the guard dogs of Brexit.
Guard dogs maybe, but they appear to have left the kennel at the moment.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. How was your lunch?
What a question!
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Can we grab a quick word, please, on ITV News? Hello, Jeremy.
A word about your eating arrangements by the sound of it.
Everybody for coming.
With our
Wonderful
Rachel.
for you to be here.
Thank
you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Who doubted you?
Thank you very much.
I'm not sure he's had his lunch yet with that response.
Tim Farron was congratulating his party and also thanking Nick Clegg for his time in office.
But I am also incredibly proud to welcome new faces to our ranks. And Christine Jardine, Vera Hobhouse, Layla Moran and Jamie Stone. We have fantastic campaigners who will be outstanding members of Parliament for their constituents.
He's got so few MPs he can just list them all without it taking too long.
But while we have made great gains, we have also lost colleagues who will be very sorely missed. Nick Clegg is a giant of British politics, a friend and a hero to me and countless others.
Yes, farewell to Nick, even if that did sound a bit like a funeral.
How any human being in her position must regret that decision, one can only imagine. But here she is, Theresa May.
So Theresa May powered on and went to the palace to seek permission to form a new government. Upon returning, she did the traditional speech in Downing Street. So let's see what she had to say.
The government I lead will put fairness and opportunity at the heart of everything we do, so that we will fulfil the promise of Brexit together and, over the next 5 years, build a country in which no one and no community is left behind.
Well, she's echoing a lot of what she said around a year ago. A lot of that sentiment, actually, now you think about it, sort of got a little bit lost during the actual campaign. And is that why she's ended up in this situation?
And having secured the largest number of votes and the greatest number of seats in the general election, it is clear that only the Conservative and Unionist Party has the legitimacy and ability to provide that certainty by commanding a majority in the House of Commons.
She's sort of acknowledging it. She's not quite, is she?
Now let's get to work.
So, a lot to analyse. We've got ourselves a political correspondent. Hello, Bert Preston. Yes, hello, Daniel. It's nice to join you. It's wonderful to have you along, Bert. So much to discuss. What do you make of it all? Incredible, isn't it, really? It really is. I've not seen anything this unpredictable in politics since last year. Pretty much anything that could go wrong did for Theresa May. It's a bit like asking me to take part in a speed reading competition. Other side of the fence, Bert. What about Labour? Yes, a good night, but not a great one. Ultimately, for Labour, Diane Abbott tells me that their final total was 723 out of the available 650 seats. Given those figures, it's quite incredible, really, that they didn't win. The more minor parties, Bert, the ones who got fewer MPs in the... let's give it a go, if we can. What was your view on those? Yes, my view on the other party is not great. They've got so few MPs. It's quite hard to see them. Yeah, not quite what I meant there, Bert, but... Yes, but I mean, it's like where's Wally with the other parties? I mean, take UKIP, for example. Try and find them, and the Wally appears to have gone. So in conclusion, it's DUP talks for the Tories now. Quite a difficult one to summarise, but I think it's fair to say that there was once a woman called Theresa who got a result that didn't please her. Next she'll be seen striking deals with Arlene, because Corbyn didn't manage to win either. But Preston, thank you. He'll be back in future weeks to analyse what happens next. Thank you very much for watching this 24/7 General Election Special. Goodbye. Wasn't that bad, was it?